So this month I've been working on my Blackthorn mini, and I wanted to run him in a Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle. And so I loaded him up and took him over to my local gaming store and was able to get a game in with one of my friends there. And during the game I made several tactical errors and mistakes, and I failed a few critical charges, but I still had a really good thematic game. And so I want to give you a quick rundown of how the battle went and how the Alethi performed alongside the Blackthorn. So let's jump in. So I had my Alethi army from a few years ago, still intact, and this time around I ran them as Khorne, using the Khorne rule set from Warhammer Age of Sigmar. If you're not familiar with Khorne or Warhammer lore, don't worry about it. You don't need to really know much about it other than Khorne rules really emphasize aggressiveness and attacking, and I thought that would match really well with Blackthorn and the Alethi, especially during the time of the Thrill. So see here, I have Blackthorn right here on this base. Now, I extended his base here because I was running him as Skarbrand, which is one of the biggest demon units of the Khorne army. He's about a quarter of my army value, and he hits like a truck, and we'll see how he can do in the battle here soon. I also took a 20-man squad of heavy infantry right here in the center. I ran these guys as Blood Warriors, which are Khorne's heavy infantry. And I had another 10-man squad over here of heavy infantry. And then I also had 3 units of Alethi spearmen, one in the center, one on this side, and then one on this flank right here. And the spearmen, I ran them as Blood Reavers, which are the light infantry on the Khorne roster. They're relatively weak, but their maneuverability, and they can take objectives on the flanks. My heavy infantry really was the bulwark of my army. They hit really hard, and they have a lot of staying power as well. And then to complete my list, I also included an Adolin figure. I ran him as a Blood Secrator, which is more of a support and buff hero unit. He has some staying power, and he also provides some really good benefits to the heavy infantry on my army. And he plays a critical role at bringing back a lot of my guys throughout the match. My friend who I was playing against, he ran Stormlight Gravelord's rule set, but his army was full of proxy models. He kind of took the theme of a vampire pirate army, which was really cool. Coincidentally, he had 3 squads of crabs that he ran as dire wolves, and these giant crabs really fit the lore really well of Roshar, right? Because Roshar is full of crustaceans. And it was kind of cool to see those crabs on the battlefield. He also had a 40-man block of zombies, as well as 20 Graveguard, which are his heavy infantry, that kind of centered in the middle of his army. And he had 2 big hero monsters that were on my right flank. So let's jump into the deployment of our armies. The battle that we played was Border War, and so they had 4 main objectives. This one down here, the home objective, this was worth 1 point for me and 5 points for him, and vice versa for his home objective was worth 1 point for him, 5 points for me. These side objectives were each worth 2 points if you controlled them during the battle. In Age of Sigmar, the goal is to accumulate points by capturing objectives, holding objectives, as well as doing battle tactics. I won't get into a lot of the battle tactics that we experienced. If that's something that interests you, please let me know in the comments. So this is how we deployed our armies. I had my heavy infantry here in the middle, along with Adolin as a support character. I had Blackthorn right in the dead center, and then I had a squad of infantry, of spearmen, and then a squad of heavy infantry as well. On my right flank, I had a 10-man squad of spearmen, and on my left flank, I had a 10-man squad of spearmen. This is my typical deployment when I use my Alethi army. I like to go in strong on the center, and then kind of keep my spearmen on the sides to grab objectives if I can, or delay some counter strikes. And my opponent, he had some skirmishers on the left-hand side, as well as 2 units of his crabs. And then he had his heavy infantry right here in the center. And then he also had his 40-man block of zombies right here, some more of his crabs on my right flank, and then as you see, his 2 hero units. He was really heavy on my right flank. He was scared of Skarbrand or Blackthorn, and as he should be, because Blackthorn is very dangerous in this game. So during the first deployment, he took the first turn, and he ran up his skirmishers up the center, and he also ran his skirmishers on my left flank, and he grabbed this objective, and he grabbed this objective and completed his battle tactic, and he remained on the side on the right flank. He stayed back, and from there he was able to grab 7 points on his first turn. So what I did next is I had my troops move up the center. I knew I needed to get into the battle, and so my heavy infantry charged up the center. I also had Blackthorn move up, and my other infantry in the center. I moved up my spearmen, and then I also moved up my spearmen on the other flank to capture that objective right there. And so what happened there is my heavy infantry, my block in the middle, was able to move up and engage the crabs right there. He was able to do a counter charge and bring in his heavy infantry as well, and so we had a nice bloodbath right in the middle of the battlefield. I was able to score 7 points on my turn. So at this point, at the end of the first battle round, we both were at 7 points. I had the opportunity to take the double turn on him, but I decided to give it to him because I didn't want to give up the battle tactic points. So from there, what he was able to do is he moved up his zombies up here to on my right flank, and then he also brought up his big hero monsters right there and right here. He fell back with his skirmishers on the left flank and kept his units over here on the left flank to kind of stay out of range of my spearmen, but also get out of range of my heavy infantry in the center. He did place what's called a manifestation or an endless spell right here. It's technically called the Purple Sun of Haish. I may have gotten that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. We ended up nicknaming it the Stupid Purple Balloon because it got in the way multiple times during this game. Because as you can see here, he set that up so that I wasn't able to move Blackthorn in any good direction. I'm kind of locked in here by that big model. So what I ended up doing is once he finished his charge phase, I did a counter charge into that Purple Sun and blew it up with Blackthorn pretty easily. And now from there, the route was open for me to engage on my turn. So after he scored 7 points on his turn, it was my turn to move in. That Purple Sun was gone, and so I was able to move in my troops, and I brought Blackthorn over to support the center and take out those heavy infantry. I brought up my infantry here in the center, and then my spearmen also came up, and the spearmen from over here came up as well. My left flank spearmen engaged the crabs that were over here, and they got eaten alive. They did 1 damage, and they all died. So spearmen or blood reavers are not that strong, not that very good against direwolves apparently. I learned my lesson from that. Blackthorn was able to destroy his whole unit of heavy infantry, and then my heavy infantry was able to destroy the rest of the crabs that were here, leaving his home objective wide open for me to get into, which would be 5 points for me if I was able to grab it next turn. My other units engaged the zombie horde right here and right here. This unit failed its charge. It was really close, but they failed the charge. We weren't able to get in melee, which was kind of detrimental to my strategy of overflowing his center at this time. Because of the unexpected casualties on my left-hand side, I wasn't able to get my battle tactic, and I wasn't able to get that objective, and so I only had 1 objective to my name. I didn't have enough units to grab his home base objective, and so I ended that turn with 1 point. Now that my opponent had the upper hand, he brought in more of his units to attack me and keep me pinned in here, and so he brought over his heroes from my right flank, brought them over to the center, and started whittling away at my infantry and my spearmen over here. And the tar pit of zombies kept being a nuisance. I couldn't get through them. On his turn, he was able to do some shenanigans on my left flank, which was now empty, and he was able to get 9 points for this round. On my turn, I brought Blackthorn over to the zombies, and I basically wiped them out. I consolidated. I started moving my heavy infantry back towards my home objective because I needed to keep that away from his skirmishers on my left flank. Overall, I started to consolidate my army into the center of the field. And so this is a before picture of Blackthorn getting into battle, and then here's the after picture. The zombies are all gone. The road is open for me to attack his heroes, which are relatively weak compared to the Blackthorn. At the end of my turn there, I was able to score 10 points because I grabbed his home objective, I had my objective, and then I also had the side objective and completed my battle tactic. So really good points turn for me. On the 4th battle round, I was able to double turn him, meaning I was able to go again. But at that very moment, he dropped in 10 units of heavy infantry in my back line. Because he was the zombie undead people, he was able to do that. And he also brought in 20 zombies up here in the top to take his home objective back. So at this point, I was stretched thin. My units were consolidated in the center, but he had 2 fresh units on the top and the bottom. So I had to deal with both of those. So what I did is I brought Blackthorn over from the center. I brought him over here to take his home objective to get those 5 points, wipe out the zombies there, and I brought in my heavy infantry from the center to try and get my back line back. However, I failed my charge there and wasn't able to get into combat. On his turn, he was able to come in with his heroes and wipe out my center lines and bring in more of his crab units to take out my right-hand flank. I was able to score 6 points because I failed my battle tactic. On his turn, as he wiped through my army, he was able to score 10 points by grabbing my home objective right there. So at this point, going into the 5th battle round, which was the last battle round, I knew I couldn't catch up with him and keep him away from scoring more points. He just had too much battlefield presence, and so I conceded defeat at this time. So there are a few lessons that I learned during this engagement. The first one was, it was really fun. I had a blast playing as the Alethi, especially having that Blackthorn model in the middle there and just steamrolling through zombies. That was very satisfying. It was really fun to fight against some crabs and kind of feel like, what would it feel like if Roshar had giant crabs that started attacking us? Maybe little mini chasm fiends or white spines, right? So gameplay wise on how I would have done better, or what I learned for my next engagement or my next battle, is to get Blackthorn in battle as soon as possible. I kind of held him back for some reason. I didn't want him to engage without support from my infantry, and so my heavy infantry was able to go in, but they didn't have the support of Blackthorn. So if I had both of those hit at the same time, it could have been very, very different battle. And then I had the opportunity to take a double turn at the beginning of the battle. As the Alethi as Khorne, I think I should have taken it, left the points on the table, and just annihilated more troops of his to clear the board to give me more board power. My army list was very infantry focused, which is the Alethi way. However, I think what I should have done is take in a few more fast units. The Khorne army roster does have some dire wolves that I could probably check out. And I'm thinking that with the RPG Kickstarter coming out with their new minis, they have an Axe Hound and a White Spine, and I'm wondering if I could proxy some of those, 3D print a few more, and get some better, faster skirmisher units on my flanks. But overall, like I said, it was a really fun game. I love seeing the Alethi on the tabletop, fighting against some crabs, fighting against some zombies, and I'm very excited for my next game that I'm going to have with him. So I hope you enjoyed this battle report. Let me know if you'd like to see other things or want me to talk more in detail about the tactics that I was using with the Warhammer rule set. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.